Okay, everyone, welcome to another Areopa webinar episode, this time titled, My Customer Has Performance Problems. What do I do? My name is Starič. I'll be the moderator today, but the whole show is about Waldo telling us what we can do with performance problems. This episode is already the 113th one. Before I give the word to Waldo, let's go through a couple of our usual housekeeping rules. Your microphone is muted and it's going to stay muted. If you have any questions, post them in the GoToWebinar question window. We agreed with Waldo that I'll pick those questions up at the end once he shares all of the tips with us. If you missed this session, which means you're not on the call, it will be available on the YouTube channel roughly tomorrow, worst case Wednesday, where you can then record it. You can share it with anyone else who couldn't make the live call. If you'd like to know what's coming up, you can always subscribe to the newsletter. You can use this URL, or there's also a button to subscribe to the newsletter on the Areopa's website. Now, in terms of what is coming up, we have 3 webinars until the end of the year. We have the extending the backend of Business Central AI agents with Azure AI Foundry by Katerina and Artem. On November 24th, we're going to have 43 dev tips in 45 minutes by Milan and Luke. And on December 8th, we're going to have a session on You Don't Have to Make Test Plans Anymore by Luke and myself. And of course, if you have an idea that you would like to speak about, if you would like to be a speaker, or just have some topics that you would really hear someone else's opinion on, we're continuously looking for speakers. So feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to just about anyone who is part of the Areopa team, and let's get you scheduled. We are going to have more webinars later after New Year's, but that is going to come a bit later. Now, just before I hand off to Waldo, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Fornav, for enabling us to host these webinars every 2 weeks. And now, Waldo, I'm going to make you the presenter, and don't worry about starting the broadcast because it's already started.
So, thank you again for having me on Areopa. Always a pleasure. What I will be doing today is a little bit of a repeat of what I've been doing on the Days of Knowledges. That's also why you see this PowerPoint layout. I did update a little bit the slides, or the presentation at least, because I noticed that since the last version, there were 1 or 2 things that I had to mention now. Now, I would like to talk about performance. Do know that this session is focused towards mostly customers or users and consultants, not so much, or not at all actually, to developers, just to set the stage. So my customer has performance problems. What do I do? And also, what should I have done? Because in many cases, performance problems should be avoided. So I would like to point some attention to that as well. I'm going to try something out. Not sure is that going to work. But I mean, let's try to get some feedback from you as well. Either you go to slido.com and use this number. You will see this number multiple times, at least for the times that we will use questions, or I would have questions for you. Or you can use your phone with the QR code as well. Don't worry, it's a Slido QR code. That should be quite fine. So I'm Waldo. I'm a development manager at Effective Business Solutions in Belgium. That's my main job. I tend to do presentations once in a while. I blog once in a while, at least once a month these days. And yeah, that's me. Why do I show this? Not just to present myself, but also to present my role. I'm in the ditches together with you. My customers also sometimes have performance problems. I also need to try to solve them and to service them, right? And from that experience, I'm delivering this session. So my customer has performance problems. What do I do? And the first question I would like to ask is, what do you do? So I will give this not too long, a minute. If Slido wants to cooperate, at least. Let's see. And one, just go to slido.com and then provide that number, and then you can participate. Look at that, already 6 people typing. My best as a CTO. That's a good place to start. Praying, well, yeah, you can try, but not sure. Telemetry, definitely something we are going to handle today. Ask smarter people. Well, good place to start, especially when you have smarter people on board. I will let that one. I will wait a few more minutes. I was actually hoping for a few specific answers. I wait 5 minutes and solved. Performance analyzer, yeah, absolutely one of the best tools that we can use. Check event log, code changes. What I'm actually a little bit searching for here, and the answer is not coming. It's all valid. Analyze performance with scheduled profiler, very nice tool. And that page inspector, we're gonna handle that. Telemetry, volumetry, I have no idea what that is. What I was actually searching for is this one. I will gather information. In my experience, one of the far most things that is forgotten is decent issue explanation. Whenever a customer has a problem, explaining what the problem is, and that could be a performance problem. In many cases, it's a performance problem. It's basically just, hey, it's slow. Can you look? Instead of just explaining what is slow. So gathering information has become an art. You need to be able to ask the right questions. And I would like to point some, attention to that as well. Pinpoint the symptom, right? You need to identify the exact issue. Ask which page they are using, what filters they are using, what company they're in, who experiences it, when. Is it the same time each day? And these kind of things. What kind of document was it? Was it document with 1 line? Was it document with 100 lines? These are all very valid questions. And next, obviously, reproduction steps. Are you able to reproduce the system, the problem? Or is it just, it happened like 5 minutes ago? If it happened 5 minutes ago, what's the exact timestamp that it happened? And these are all very important questions, because that means if you have a timestamp, we would be able to look into telemetry. If you have a reproduction scenario, we are able to use, like, let's say, another tool like the analyzer, the performance analyzer, to be able to look into, let's say, the code and how long does certain methods take, and these kind of things. Yeah. One tip here is page scripting. If you just teach your users, your consultants, on how to use page scripting, this is a way for them to document the reproduction steps, right? Next, what environment are we working in? Or is it in a sandbox environment or production environment? Which company? How do you connect to that environment, right? Also here, you have the help and support. And maybe I should just show you what I mean. For a second, if we go to help and support, if you browse down, you see here, report a problem. This is a section that is probably quite interesting when you need to report a problem, right? That's why it's also is a title, report a problem. So all the text here is important. You have the telemetry ID, you have the session ID, you have the session ID of the server. All of this is quite important. If I would like to connect with the AL performance profiler, I need the session ID. If I would like to analyze telemetry, I need this session ID, the GUID. So yeah, obviously tenant ID, environment. This is actually, if this is the environment with the problem, then this is the section that you would like to provide to whoever is going to solve your problem. So teach your users, teach your consultants on how to do that. So where were there recent changes? Always a very valid question to ask. If it was slow if it was fast the past couple of weeks and it's all of a sudden slow today, it might be just something you did or your company did or your partner did today, right? So what has changed? And also here, tip, use the admin center. If you go to the admin center, we have something that is called, let me just see, operations. And in the operations, you see pretty much all what happened the past couple of whatever that you would filter it on. And you can find out, yeah, what happened to your system, if an app was installed, if an upgrade occurred, if somebody installed the PTE, whatnot. Yeah, actually very valid things to do. And also quantify the impact. Like if a person tells you it's slow, what is slow? Because it's a very relative thing to, a personal thing to experience, right? Sometimes slow means 10 seconds. And if it takes 10 seconds to open a customer list, yeah, that's slow. I think we can all agree. But maybe the user is talking about 1 second, and 1 second might be slow for you, but not, that is actually not slow for me, right? So you need to find out, like, look, what are you talking about? What is the quantification? What is slow? Tell me how many seconds? Give me numbers, right? And also talk back with numbers. From the moment you have solved the performance issue, you can report, you should be able to report, like, look, I took it down 10%, or I took it, it's 100% improvement. That's not possible. But anyway, things like that. Quantify within your communications with whoever reports the problem. Then ask for system data. Again, something you should teach, or something that users and consultants also should know about, right? Things like logs. Anyone can look into whatever is logging at the moment with the database logs window. Anyone can look, at least admins can look into the sessions window and see who's working. Yeah, you can look into the last error page. The last error page. I mean, whoever is sending you screenshots, send them back. Screenshots that's not information. In the screenshot of an error message, there is a link, copy details. The details, that's what you want to know, right? So the error details is also what you can also find on the last error page. That's what you want to know when you're reporting an error. I'm going to be quite frank. Whenever I get a screenshot, I basically just reply, I need the details. I'm not even going to look at the issue. It's a form of mutual respect. If you're not sending me details, you don't want me to solve your problem. Okay, so you need to learn and teach to decently report. And I hope I already gave you a few pointers. And then when I asked the first question, there were a lot of tools in there. And we are going to cover some of those tools, what I think are good tools to troubleshoot. Before I do that, let's ask you again, apparently, what tools do you use to troubleshoot performance? Telemetry. I'm very happy that this is the first one that's popping up. Page inspector, interesting. From the amount of times I've been doing this session, I think nobody ever noted down a page inspector, but it's a very valid tool, and actually, in my opinion, should be the #1 tool to go to. Performance profiler, profile, probably the same. SQL Server Manager Studio, probably someone who's still working quite on-prem. Event log also quite on-prem, I think, because event log in the cloud is quite difficult. Also PowerShell. I would like to ask what you do with PowerShell to investigate performance, because I'm interested, but I wouldn't know how to use that. Missing indexes, yeah, often forgotten. We have that information, and we will talk about that a little bit more further on in the session. Okay, event recorder. So absolutely a good tool to look into what's happening in the system. So yeah, good suggestions. I'm trying to move to the next slide. Yes, there it was. Okay, first tool we'll talk about is the page inspector. Yeah, I do have a small demo on that. Let's just imagine that I would open the customers list and it would behave like this. And I hope we can all agree that this is very bad user experience, right? Opening a customer list this takes too long. If this happens, first thing that should happen is Control-Alt-F1, opening the page inspector, move to the extensions tab, and just look into which extension has, let's say, multiple seconds of load time. Let's see if we can find one. Yeah, I can find one. Here we have 8.6 seconds, an extension which is BC Perf Tool Demos. Yeah, obviously I created an extension to be able to demo this, and yeah, that's happening at the moment. And you can already point into some kind of direction. Whoever created this, well, in my case, I created this. Well, something is going on the custom list by this extension, right? And the page inspector is absolutely something you should look at when something like this happens. Next thing is the page scripting tool. Again, a tool that is perfect for you to document a certain workflow through pages, right? So a reproduction scenario is actually, page scripting tool is actually perfect for that. Yeah. The database logs is absolutely something you should look at. At the moment, when you have a situation that something is slow, but you cannot really reproduce it, but you have that slow situation at that moment, at the current time, well, opening this should be some kind of an instinct. It shows you what else is happening at the moment, who else is locking what resources, and if those resources match in whatever you try to do, well, then at least you have some kind of indication that whatever user, which is popping up in the screen, is locking you from doing what you want to do. Yeah. The downside on this screen is that you cannot look into the past. So if I would open that window here, database logs, it's probably going to be empty because it's always a current look. What is locking now? If there are no users in the system, so nothing is locking at the moment. I'm the only one who's working in the system. That's why you really need to have it like currently. And the telemetry guys and girls that are following the session are now probably saying like, look, but I can see that in telemetry. Yes, you can see also like history data in telemetry, but only if there was a lock timeout occurring at that moment. Yeah, you don't see all locks in telemetry, only the ones that caused the lock timeout. Okay, but we will get to that in a second. Also, very many times forgotten tool is the sessions window that we have in the administration center. If you don't know, administration center, you can go to environments, you can go to the environment session, and there is, well, all the sessions. There is no session in my live environment, but what I would like to show you here is the button you should actually never press, but the button is still there, and in some occasions that it might come in handy if you really do not have, well, if you really want to, you can restart the environment. It's often forgotten, but you can restart the NST on SaaS. Next, the in-client performance profiler. Yeah, I don't think it's often forgotten anymore. I think this is the #1 tool used to investigate performance. Do know, and when do we use this? Is when we have a reproduction scenario, when we know which process is running slow. So coming back to gathering information, yeah, users, consultants, they really need to either use this tool or describe the situation that needs to be profiled. Yeah. But just imagine that you have that. Well, we have that, right? I opened the customer list and it was slow. So that is a very clear process. So from the moment you have that process to be analyzed, then you can use this tool. And it's actually quite simple. You prepare your scenario that you have described. You start the profiler. You set up to 50 milliseconds. Don't forget that. It will give you much more details. We will get there in a minute. You start, you execute scenario, you stop, and you analyze. Yeah, let's do that. It is actually quite easy to do. So as I said, you start the profiler. You can do that in the help and support. And here there's analyze performance. Somebody mentioned earlier that there was a scheduled way to do that as well. Exactly, there is a scheduled profile. So you would be able, if you have a situation that at a certain point in time, let's say at night at 3 o'clock, there's always a slow process. Well, you would be able to schedule at night at 3 o'clock a certain profiler as well. In any case, we're not going to do that now. Let me just open them side by side. That's usually how I do that. I will prepare my scenarios. It's prepared. I just have to click the customer list. So I can start my profiler. I can start my customer list. There we go. Yeah, it's still slow. It's not good. There, process has ended. This also means don't click anything else, because from the moment you start now, like escaping and start into other windows, all of that code will be profiled as well. You don't want to have clutter in your profile, just the very isolated process you would like to analyze. You will stop after that process. Okay. I did. What is happening? F5, nothing. Well, it's not doing anything. I did do the exact same thing just earlier today. Let me. No, it's not working. Okay. I'm not going to search why it's not working, but it's not working. It should have been working. Okay, let me just give it one more chance. Started. I open my customer list. It's open. I go back. I stop it. It's not showing me anything. Okay. Well, yeah. No idea. I have no idea why this doesn't work. And that's a little bit of pain, because I had something to show in there as well. Yeah, my apologies. I tried it, same environment. It doesn't work today. I blame Microsoft. There are some considerations. If it would have worked, do know that this incline profiler that we just used does use sampling method. So it's not gonna track everything. It's going to track every some amount of milliseconds. So I didn't show you, but when you would start that profiler, going to show you because I would like to show you that setting. You can set it to a certain amount of settings, and this actually means that every 50, 100, or 150 milliseconds, it's going to take a snapshot of the current call stack. So if the call stack at that point is like a posting routine and some stack of methods, then that's what is going to save in memory. And it will do that every 50, 100, or 150 milliseconds. Yeah. That's what we call sampling. So every 50 milliseconds, it would it would take a snapshot. And that's not the same as what the AL performance profile would do, which can do instrumentation. Now, what instrumentation is that before and after every method, it is basically going to put a start and stop, yeah, or an enter and an exit. And between those two methods is going to measure the amount of time that it took to execute that function. And in that way, it's going to build up that stack trace and that profile. Yeah, it's a very different method. The nice thing on instrumentation is that you will capture every single detail. And the downside on sampling is that you will lose details. As you see here on the graph, if there is a call stack that is where a method like this small method and this also small method is short enough to be in between the two samples, then it will not be in the sample, obviously, right? And that data you will miss. Yeah. It can also not figure out how many times you executed a certain function, because, I mean, in this case, foo was executed twice, a hit count of twice, but it was sampled twice. Sorry, it was sampled twice. Yeah, but like this run, it was sampled 3 times, but only ran once. So there's no way to figure out the hit count. That's also why you don't get a hit count with sampling, and you do get a hit count with instrumentation. Instrumentation is something you can use as a developer in the AL performance profiler, where the VS Code will connect to, well, we'll basically start a snapshot debugging session, and that's where you basically can get all that information. Do know that we need to set a profiling tab to instrumentation, and that's kind of like it. I don't want to go too deep into that, although that probably would have worked in this case. My in-client profiler, I never had that before. Well, it failed. I have no idea why that was. The next tool, very also important, more of it obviously for the developer in this case, is the debugger. And this is actually one of the only things that I have to add some more information on top of what I did last year, because since version 20 or up until version 27, the debugger was actually the only way to get to SQL information, to get to the SQL statements. Yeah, and I'm talking SaaS environment. Yeah, that's not the case anymore. In fact, the in-client performance profiler, if it works, so not today, it would show you SQL Server information. So it will show you from a certain method the amount or all the SQL statements that have been executed within this method. Yeah, very interesting information. Absolutely something you can use to go into SQL Server information. And you might ask, hey, SQL Server information, that's a development thing to do. So why don't I get that in the AL performance profiler? Well, you do get that in the AL performance profiler, but only when you use sampling. So remember this screenshot. In the AL performance profiler, you can either have the profiling type instrumentation or sampling. Only when you use sampling, you will get SQL Server information. You do not get that with instrumentation. To explain you why that is would take us too far, but it all boils down to that you cannot, or Microsoft cannot map 100% stable, on a stable way, a certain SQL statement to a certain AL statement. So that's why they group an amount of SQL statements towards whatever happened in a certain sample. Okay, So now there are two ways to get to SQL's information, and one way absolutely was the debugger. Now we can even get it from in the Incline performance profiler in version 27. Next tool, a bit bigger. We have seen telemetry. Well, we didn't talk about too much in this session, but we have seen it in the answers a few times. And yeah, from whenever there is not too much information gathered and I need to gather information myself, well, telemetry is basically all I have, right? Telemetry is basically usage data. So I have some graph here. My Business Central is, well, being used by multiple users, and not just users, also background processes, web service calls, and all that. And all of these usages are being saved in something that we call application insights on Azure. And these insights can be, well, let's say, analyzed. So just look at application insights as being a database with lots of data. Yeah. And look at Power BI, a way to look into data, and KQL to a way to look into that data. Yeah. So yeah, we have that at our disposal. This database keeps on growing with all the usages, with all the things that, also the things that were slow. Yeah. So in terms of performance, there are definitely things that we can look into in application insights. But before we get there are a few types of metrics that we get with telemetry. There is this, well, the user experience, let's say the page views, how many times certain page or which page came from what page, or what is the page flow and all that. It's basically all put into telemetry. What we're mostly interested in today is performance monitoring. We can look into logging, or at least the log time now. So we can look into the deadlocks. We can look into page performance, but also slow running queries, SQL queries, but also slow running AL methods and these kind of things. So yeah, quite interesting in terms of performance. We also have some security and authorization stuff. We have application lifecycle, which apps are installed, what install failed, environments that's being set up, and so on. And obviously also the integration stuff, where we look into APIs, web service calls, emails, even job queues. Yeah, a lot that we can look into, a lot usages that is being saved. And yeah, it's basically just on our fingertips to be able to analyze any kind of problem. We'll focus a little bit on performance monitoring and problems. So how would we be able to do that? Now, I'm going to show you what we do. So we built our own, let's say, dashboard in Data Explorer. There are different ways to do that, right? Microsoft has created a dashboard in Power BI. What I hear from the community is that this is not that much used because it's that and only that. While looking and analyzing, you want to change parameters, you want to add some stuff you want to be flexible in querying the data. And that's where Data Explorer comes in. Data Explorer.com is basically a tool that I think works best for analyzing telemetry. And what we have done, what I usually look into, is like some views on the slow running SQL. For me, that makes sense. So here we can, for instance, compare slow running customers. I would be able to filter on a certain customer, like food, drinks, and laughs. It's a fake customer, by the way. Is something that we should look into because that's the slowest customer. So we would be able to filter on that. And if you drill down a little bit more, we can go into what is the slowest object and all that. And then looked into elapsed time and how many times that occurred and like that. And you'll see here actually quite quickly some pinpointers or some pies that are quite big, which should not be big, right? So yeah, telemetry definitely something you really need to put some time in to get that figured out. I will point to some resources that can get you started as well. What else is important here is obviously slow AL, although I don't really personally look into this because slow AL is also an AL method with a confirmation dialog. And if the user takes its time to press yes or no or continue or whatever to continue the process, well, those will be in here. So typical print boxes and all that, or print code that will pop up in here as well. Deadlocks, log timeouts, all things that you would be able to look into. Yeah, look at that. We didn't have any log timeout last hour. That's good. How do you get started? Well, I'm going to promote my blog here, shamelessly. I do have on my blog a series that's called Handling Business Central Telemetry Like a Boss, where I have 3 parts talking about how to get started. From just to set up a Data Explorer dashboard, getting started with the dashboard that I just showed. With this one, this is basically just available on my repository, and then some tips and tricks. And the last one that I actually did, and I would like to point out as well, is an app, telemetry app. Effective Telemetry is a free app on AppSource. It will be free forever and all that. That gets you a little bit more telemetry to be able to look into performance problems. And what it actually does is, let me browse down here a little bit, it gives you some daily telemetry. It gives you a daily overview of the current missing indexes, because missing indexes is nice to see per customer, but it's even nicer to see, especially for a nice fee, among all your customers, to see, okay, but what is my most missed index shared with other customers? Yeah. And then also typically missing indexes is something that you would like to see over a period of time, because if a missing index was only missed just once and so on, well, then maybe it's not that missed too much. So some indexes that in this case, I would like to, I should look into in creating them, and all the parameters that we need, like how many times it was missed and so on. Over the last 24 hours, since this is a daily job, only one occurrence, it's normal, obviously. And even more, we have some daily telemetry on features, retention policies, apps, and so on. But for us, like in this session, for performance, the missing indexes is actually quite a nice view for ISVs to look into their product. Okay, like I promised, we'll also look a little bit into avoiding performance problems. So we'll join the PPP, which is the Performance Problem Prevention Club. So, question to you. What is typically the slowest page? I'm actually quite interested in the different answers on this one. I will give this not too long, only 5 people now. 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we go. Okay, what's typically the slowest page? And I get this list, by the way, from Telemetry. Wow, interesting. So sales orders, GL entries. Probably this is a very personal list, but actually typically the slowest page is the item list. Second question. Same people? Oh, come on. Don't you want? Yes, second. What is the second slowest page? So this is actually from Telemetry from, I think, plus 100 customers.
At least for me, it shows as voting closed.
Voting closed. Yeah, sorry about this. Sorry, Slido is also not cooperating. It's yeah, I have no idea what's going on. Anyway, slowest page, second slowest page is item cart, and the reason why is how we sometimes, not we, maybe not we as developers, we as developers usually know what is going on, but it's users demanding stuff, it's consultants demanding stuff. So, and they treat Business Central sometimes as a reporting system. Well, Business Central is not a reporting system. Business Central is a transactional system, and that kind of like means that we shouldn't be putting too much on a page, because the more we put on the page, the slower the page gets. If you want to keep your pages fast, you need to avoid calculations, you need to avoid flow fields, you need to avoid, yeah, all the things that make a page slow. And typically on the item list and on the item cart, that's where you would like to have the most information. How many are in orders? How many have been, what not question you would like to have on a list that needs to be calculated per record. Yeah, a very typical mistake that has been made in many implementations, which makes that the item list and item cart are typically slow, but it's actually rules that you should apply to any kind of implementation. If you would like to keep your application fast, well, then keep your pages simple. So, and also keep your processes short. What I see sometimes is that, let's just say that you have like a posting transaction or a posting routine that customers, users, consultants like to put more and more into that same process. Like if I post this, automatically that and that document should be posted, it should be automatically sent, it should be automatically done, that, and that. But the more you do, the longer it takes. And with the more people you do that, you basically create bottlenecks. And from the moment there is a choking point, the system will dramatically decline in performance. So the only way to do that is to not do that, right? Keep your transactions as fast as possible, as split as possible. Also, keep your APIs simple. Very, it's difficult to explain, but an API should actually just be one SQL call. And from the moment you're using what we call the on-off to get record in an API in a page, yeah, that is when, well, performance declines, right? Because in an API call, when it's just a SQL call, it's a very, very fast API call. But if I need to calculate something for each record to be able to display in an API, I'm gonna have to do that for every single record, right? So just one SQL call becomes one SQL call plus the amount of records times the SQL calls necessary for your calculation, which is a lot more than one. Depends a little bit on your amount of records, and especially in an API, and especially in an API that's being called not in a paged way or not in a filtered way, well, that can have drastic negative performance on APIs. Sometimes a simple second call, a second API, is much more performant than just putting everything in one API and then off to get record and calculate a bunch of things. Yeah. Then another thing that we really need to explain users that if it's in the product, it needs to be fast as well, right? I can enable whatever, it's gonna be fast. No, that's not the case. Just use it all and fast, and furious feature does not exist. And that's something we need to really realize. So how you set up the application has a big impact. So there, a question. Well, this is probably not going to work. So I'm going to skip this one. Well, maybe it does work. So what application functionality can have a negative impact on performance, you think? Well, these are the answers, and actually the actual answer is all of them. Every single one of them has actually quite a negative impact in terms of performance. Wow, Tine, nice one. So try to avoid them. Try to avoid to adjust cost item entries in a high frequency. Try to avoid using the change log. This is a very obvious one, the change log. Try to run your job queues too frequently, and all the other things here on the list. The more you enable, the slower it gets. One thing sometimes consultants don't think about is the copy company. Oh, so bad. Whoever is using the live environment to copy the company to a test company and then starts to test. No, don't do that. Very bad behavior. You are locking the entire system just for your bad practices. You have different environments. You have sandbox environments to do something like that. Yeah, copy company during business hours is not done. Avoid locking. Allow gaps in number series. Still a setting that is not used in some environments, and it drastically lowers the amount of locking. Yeah. And then again, don't use the copy company and don't adjust cost and item entries too often. This is just a screenshot. What was it again? Yeah, this was a screenshot of the allow gaps in number series, where we had a tremendous amount of lock timeouts just because we forgot to switch on that setting. It's a very simple setting. Okay, job queues. It can be a positive. I mean, if you run job queues too frequently, you will overload the system. Yeah, I know you can set it every minute, but ask yourself, is it really necessary? If you talk to your customers, don't talk minutes, talk at least 10 minutes. Like, is it what is the fastest you would like? No, what is the slowest you would endure? Yeah, that's the right question. Next, perception is reality, and I will come back to job queues, obviously. Now, background processes like job queues do improve perception, right? It's not like processes will be running faster in background, not at all, but you just don't feel them running if you run them in background. So background posting makes all the sense in the world instead of letting the user wait for the process to finish. So yeah, set it up. Yeah. Now, page background tasks is a feature that has been forgotten. Let's say that it exists for a long time. I'm not sure because my environments don't want to work with me, but I'm gonna try anyway. I do have some little demo here on the page background task and the difference between both. So I have this 2 pages, same page, pretty much same calculations, and one without the background task and one with the background task. You know, if I run one, you see this user experience not really good. It takes a while to open. In this case, a role center. I mean, by the way, in many cases, it would be a role center. Yeah, and if you would do it like here, it opens it opens immediately, and the calculation lags behind. And that is a much better perception. It is a fast perception, and I can even click already. And while I'm already working in the page, the complex calculation is still being calculated. And this is actually done by what we call a page background task. I'm not going to explain how that works, but do know it exists. As a user, as a consultant, it does exist. Developers need to know about it, and you now know also that you can ask about it. So run things in background, that is definitely going to make the perception much better. And I will end with a few tips for users. Browsers, please use supported browsers, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Safari. The network, your network, can have an impact on performance a lot. So with Azure Speed, with AzureSpeed.com, you can actually measure the latency, which has the most impact on your performance to Business Central. Yeah, Microsoft official documentation talks about the maximum latency of 250, 300 milliseconds. I would not talk about that. Honestly, I would make it max 125, which gives an okay performance. Anything above 125 is too much. And you need to work, and you need to make sure that your latency goes down. Talk to your providers, talk to your infrastructure people, and make sure that your network is decent. Also, your browsers, make them up to date. Know that Business Central is updated pretty much every month. So yeah, your browsers should be up to date as well. It could sound strange, but that is the case. It has an impact. Users can make pages load faster these days. Whatever you're not calculating, whatever you hide on a page with user personalization, it's not going to calculate, and it will significantly speed up your page performance. Yeah. And then learn to navigate the system. There are keyboard shortcuts, the Alt keys. There are this quick entry. There is a way to focus on lists with certain shortcuts, and so on, and so on. There is a way to work with editing in Excel, which can, yeah, improve your performance. Yeah, learn to use these features. Then, when you use pictures, use small pictures. What I've seen a lot in databases is that the same pictures being used for catalogs, like these high-resolution pictures, are being uploaded as pictures in the media table just to be able to show in an item list. No, don't do that. That's overloading the system, having to calculate your picture to be shown and in a list, and that doesn't make any sense. Also, it means that your storage in the admin center, let's say, on your capacity is reached much sooner than it should be. Make sure you use small pictures. And then searching and filtering. It has improved a lot the last couple of releases, I must say, but in a way, the F3, and what I mean with F3 is actually the one, I will take famous because customers are slow. No, famous are slow as well. This one here, that's the search box of evil, let's say. Well, it was. When you use legacy search, it's the search box of evil. There's no way to get that fast or faster whenever that is slow. Although now try to work with the modern search. Modern search is faster, but searches on less. Yeah. How can we notice on what it searches on? Well, if I would here like Fabri, search on Fabri, and if I would go to the page inspector, I can in the page filter see on which fields it's going to search on. Yeah, and how it searches and what my filter is. If I would switch this to the modern search and search for Fabri, you will see that the amount of fields is different and usually less. That's because it's a very different way of searching, but a much faster way of searching. I'm not going to explain all the differences. Basically, it's going to search for the beginning of each word in the text and not just anywhere. And that's also why it's faster. Yeah, there's a way to index that. So work with that. Try to work with a modern search. Try to get used to that. Try to do work on how that's worked. One warning though, especially after an upgrade, the modern search might be insanely slow. Don't panic. That's an indexing thing, or basically a statistics thing that needs to be updated. Usually that's happening for a few days. SQL Server is being maintained, and the situation will improve when this happens. Don't give up. Just try again in a few days and use legacy search in the meantime. That's all I can say for that. And I think last but not least, block your data. If block your customers, vendors, items, whoever or whatever can be blocked, block it, because internally the system will filter out those things that are blocked, and automatically it will use less shorter result sets, less memory and all that, so it will be more efficient. The more data you block, the less it needs to work with. Yeah, and that's all I had to share, and I left 1 minute for questions.
Thank you very much, Waldo. If anyone's got questions, we can maybe extend a bit over the 1 minute.
No, of course.
Just pop them in the questions section. I wish I heard your session earlier. I was one of the people who years ago started copying a company and then closed the laptop down and went out for lunch. And then I got a call from the customer saying that the point of sale does not work, that everything is locked. I started sweating so much.
Yeah, and I still hear today that people apply the practice like, oh, I never create a sandbox. I just copy a company to be able to test something that goes wrong in live environments, and I need to like fix whatever posting or setting I need to fix. And that's a very bad practice in terms of performance. It's not good.
Definitely. We don't have questions, but we do have 2 remarks. Earlier, when we were all replying to you, which tools do we use for performance? One of them was PowerShell. You didn't really know how that would be used. And Hans replied with, we use PowerShell to find slow queries in the event log and connect them to user sessions on-prem.
Interesting. Yeah, that is one thing you can do on-prem, is add slow running queries in the event log. I've been using that a lot as well on-prem. Interesting, and then read that with PowerShell and analyze that. Yeah, that's very valid. Absolutely. Yeah, interesting.
Then Arthur says that he doesn't have a question, but he's very grateful. It's great to touch on a broad way on this topic. And one question from Sven. Has someone used column store index? Does that ring a bell?
That does not ring a bell. At least not the bell that it should ring, I think. So if it's the no, it's not column store. Yes, I know what he means, but I didn't use it. The thing is that if I remember correctly, that was a setting on the table level where we can set up a new set of a new index, let's say, to improve. Oh, now it's very deep in my memory. I remember that I tested it and it did not improve on one single thing. Back in the day when it was just announced and it was in the preview version. And then kind of like Microsoft came back with like, we'll come with guidelines on how it can improve your situation. And then, well, I never heard anything ever since, but it was to improve, I think, SIFT totals. I shouldn't be talking now because I'm not sure. But it's a very valid question. And it was a big thing. It was an announcement as well back in the day. I think it's 3 years ago or 2 years ago. But then nobody really picked it up as having a good impact on it. I'm going to put it on my list to see if I can figure out what the current status is. It's a very good question. I would like to know as well.
Good. Okay, and I see that's the last of the questions. So yeah, let me just take the screen to go through the last few slides I have. There we go. So for everyone on the call, again, thank you very much for joining in. Do join us in the upcoming Mondays as well, November 10th, for extending the backend of Business Central AI agents with Azure AI Foundry, November 24th for 43 dev tips in 45 minutes, and December 8th for you don't have to make test plans anymore. And the last thing I want to say is, of course, thanks to you, Waldo, for doing the session today, but also thank you to the Areopa team that makes sure that we can have these every 2 weeks. And with that, thank you very much and see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.